the fence rests, let's lay it down. Gonna dig deep, wave that verdict round. The defense rests, time to analyze. With the evidence, we'll unveil the crime. Justice served in an honest fight. True crime tales till the verdict's right. Solving more than just trivial quests, where sentences rule at the defense rests.
I'm Vinny Politan. The subject of my investigation is the murder of a little 15-month-old girl named Evelyn. This is a tragedy, one where this little girl was let down by everyone in her life who was supposed to protect her. Here's her story. Little baby Evelyn, a blue-eyed, blonde-haired bundle of absolute joy, was born in Tennessee. Her dad was in the military and didn't have a relationship with her mom, Megan Boswell, so Megan was a 17-year-old single mother. But she seemingly did have some help. Evelyn and Megan lived on the Boswell family compound with Evelyn's grandparents, Tommy and Angela, and Evelyn's uncle, Tommy Jr. At some point in December of 2019, Evelyn went missing, but no one reported her gone until February of 2020. It was her grandpa who called police, not her mother. When the investigation began, Megan's story allegedly changed and turned out to be false. She reportedly said Evelyn was with Grandma Angela and her boyfriend. Megan was arrested for providing false information. Then Evelyn's body was found on the family compound. The medical examiner believes she was placed upside down in a trash can inside a shed where she died. Prosecutors believe Megan is the one who did it and have charged her with the murder of this little angel. Such a tough story, but it's a fact pattern that we've seen similar ones before. Megan Boswell has spoken, and she spoke to the local media because this case began as a missing child. It didn't start as a murder investigation, didn't start as a murder case. It was a missing child. So the missing child's teenage mother spoke to the media. Take a listen here to her being interviewed. This is published February 24th of 2020.
We went to go out to eat, and then my mom came and got her. She was wearing a little hot pink tracksuit with the matching bow and little matching shoes a little bit before Christmas. I was trying to protect my mom, maybe in hopes, oh, well, she'd just tell them where Evelyn was, but obviously she's not going to.
So there she is on that date saying, well, I gave her to mom before Christmas. This is now February, before Christmas. So she continues to talk about what happened and indicates that her mother apparently, according to Megan, gave Evelyn, the little baby, to someone else, a third party. Here she is explaining that part of the story.
I've told TBI where to find her in Mendota. My mom took her to a campground in a silver camper, and if they don't go tonight, I'm gonna go find her myself.
When did you know that something was wrong?
Just when she left and took off, and just to answer her phone, or the person that is in Mendota has had her the whole time.
But that's not where she was found. She was found on the family compound. So that's not true. So what's going on in this interview? And that brings us to my first question about this teenage mom. And did Megan Boswell already know Evelyn was dead? Right? She's telling this story about her mom, but at that point, did she already know that her little girl was no longer alive? Let me bring in my guest joining me. Jury consultant, human behavior expert Susan Constantine is with us. Also joining us, staff writer for the Kingsport Times News, Rick Wagner. Thank you both. Susan, let me just begin with you in what you saw from that mother. This is, again, before little baby Evelyn is found. It's a missing child. She's speaking there. Did you notice anything in the way she delivered in that interview.
Yeah, when I'm watching the video, just watching her affect, what we're looking for are any sort of grief or worry, symptoms on her face. And you don't really see that. I mean, she's showing a few little crocodile tears, and there's a lot of research behind the faked and framed crocodile tears. Here's what's interesting is that this didn't match this. So there was no sadness here. You can see this little pinching up. Those are stressors. No horizontal lines across her forehead. We see a little chin pop right here. It's called a chin boss. Boss has more to do with pouting. Her shaking her head back and no could be indications that that's just how she's processing information, more of a convincing rather than conveying gesture. So overall, this would give me suspicion just because her overall affect really didn't match the severity of her daughter missing. It just was out of sync. So those are the kind of things what we call face anomalies. We see face anomalies that don't synchronize the way they should. Those are what we call points of interest, and we hone in on that. We're missing some other pieces to it before I can actually say she's deceptive.
Okay, I want to take a look now. The TBI Special Agent David Gratz testified in court about an interview he did with Megan Boswell the next day on February 25th, 2020. Take a look. And this is what he testified to. She did say she was aware that Evelyn was dead. However, she told the story that it resulted from either her or Hunter Wood rolling over the child while sleeping, but she did not know the location of Evelyn's body. Rick Wagner from the Kingsport Times News, who's been on top of this story throughout. Rick, she's told a lot of stories, a lot of different stories. What are you taking away from what she knew and at what point?
Well, I think it's very clear that the prosecution is very convinced that she told some things that were not true. She, among other things, among the murder charges, faces 12 counts of giving false police reports. And she attempted, or her attorney did recently, to have those heard separately, but that did not get approval from the judge.
And this,
so I think that.
Go ahead, continue.
No, that's it. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to talk over you.
Never a problem. I want to show this as well, also from the TBI Special Agent David Gratz. This is from March 6th of 2020. We found the remains inside of a building that was referred to by the family as the Playhouse. It was out behind what I would call a storage building on the property. And this playhouse was built by the defendant, Megan's grandfather, as a playhouse for her when she was a child. Susan, so we know that the stories aren't true. She's been charged with making all of these false statements. When someone has told so many alleged false statements, is it difficult to tell when and if they're telling the truth?
Oh, yes, there is, Vinny. This is what I love to do because we can take all of those these interviews that she's done, put it all together in all the statements, and then analyze them side by side. See if there's any sort of language deviations. If she's switching it up, maybe the timelines or the surrounding events have changed. Anytime there is a change, there's a change that happened. So when you have high cognitive load, meaning that you've got all these thoughts going through your head, trying to put the story together, you can't do it cohesively. It's vague or it's out of sequence. That's telling you these are major hot spots. So if it were my team, I would be analyzing this like I was giving an X-ray. It would be through statement analysis, voice stress analysis, and behavioral analysis, clustering them together. And I could probably tell you in just the language what occurred and when it occurred, because the language will tell the story behind what really happened. And just one little twist of a word can make a big difference.
And Rick, we talk about the different stories she's had. One story was that Evelyn's father had her, but Evelyn's father, not even in the state, right?
Yeah, he was in the military, and I believe he was in one of the Carolinas when, at the time, she alleged that he had had physical custody of Evelyn. So that turned out to not be possible. They got him on the record pretty quickly about that.
And Susan, is there any difference in evaluating someone who is this young? You know, when she had the baby, she was just 17 years old, and she appears to me as being younger than her age in the way she speaks and the way she acts. Is that something you take into trying to figure out?
Into consideration?
Right.
Well, yes and no, because there's the psychological development of the person. So sometimes the language might change and be more infantile. We'd be able to tell maybe their age range more mentally. But no, you can take their statement and still run it through statement analysis. I had a case just the other day. It was a 9-year-old alleging that he was molested by his stepfather. So we had to use voice stress analysis to determine whether that child was truthful. So yes, you can use it because it will pick up those little micro vocal tremors. And regardless of what age, when you deviate from the truth, it's going to show up no matter what. But it has to be intentional. You have to know the truth, deviate from the truth, and that's where the stressors will be found.
Yeah. And Rick, any indication from grandma or grandpa, and I'm speaking Evelyn's grandmother and grandpa, that they knew what was going on here?
It's really hard to tell. We covered this sort of as a team effort, and there were a lot of different people involved, but I can't recall that. I think I recall that the grandfather was very concerned about this, and you know, at some point the sheriff's office from Sullivan County got to the root of it and found Evelyn.
All right.
Unfortunately, not living.
Not alive. Rick Wagner's going to stay with us. Susan Constantine, thank you so much. Coming up, can they prove the case against Megan Boswell?
At this point, most of you are aware that we've received a number of conflicting, inaccurate statements from the mother, Megan Boswell, Evelyn's mother.
Go ahead. Hit me. Bam.
2 celebrities reveal their
Sunday night, 8/7 Central.
only on Court TV.
I want to start out by saying that we've been looking for baby Evelyn since last Tuesday. We've been working 24/7 nonstop. As you all know, she was first reported missing last week, and we're still searching for her and working to determine exactly when she disappeared. We have followed up on over 570 tips, along with the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation and Federal Bureau of Investigation. We've been working as a team on this ever since baby Evelyn's went missing. At this point, most of you are aware that we've received a number of conflicting, inaccurate statements from the mother, Megan Boswell, Evelyn's mother. During the investigation, we determined that some of the statements Megan Boswell provided to us were false. Many of the false statements that Megan made delayed our investigations and also impeded our investigations on trying to find Evelyn. As a result, she has been charged with false reporting.
So a teenage mother of a young child that goes missing lies to police, okay? Teenage mother of a missing child doesn't report her child missing for over a month and never reports her child missing. The child's grandparent reports the child missing. The teenage mom makes up some fictitious person as having custody of the child. Does all that sound familiar? Because it does to me. It reminds me a lot of another case that I still have nightmares about. Remember this?
As to the charge of first-degree murder, verdict as to count 1, we, the jury, find the defendant not guilty, so say we all, dated at Orlando, Orange County, Florida, on this 5th day of July, 2011, signed foreperson. As to the charge of aggravated child abuse, verdict as to count 2, we, the jury, find the defendant not guilty, so say we all, dated at Orlando, Orange County, Florida, this 5th day of July, 2011, signed foreperson. As to the charge of aggravated manslaughter of a child, Verdict is to count 3. We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty. So say we all, dated at Orlando, Orange County, Florida, this 5th day of July, 2011, signed foreperson. As to the charge of providing false information to a law enforcement officer, verdict as to count 4. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of providing false information to a law enforcement officer as charged in the indictment. So say we all, dated Orlando, Orange County, Florida, this 5th day of July, 2011, signed foreperson.
It seemed to defy common sense, but the jury was not convinced beyond a reasonable doubt. All 12 of them, not one of them was convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that that woman was guilty. Which brings me to my next question about the case we're investigating tonight, and this is a big one. Can they prove the case against Megan Boswell? Can they do in Tennessee what they couldn't do down in Orange County, Florida? Still with me, Rick Wagner, and joining us, someone who knows a lot about that other case, retired 9th Judicial Circuit Court Judge, America's Judge, the Honorable Belvin Perry. Okay, Judge, I'm going right to you. You were there for the whole thing. You saw what the jury did at the end of the day. Can that happen again in this case, or do you think prosecutors can prove this case against Megan Boswell?
The big difference with the Anthony case versus the Boswell case is the fact that there is a body, and there's a body that gave a cause of death as asphyxiation. In the Anthony case, one of the jurors said one of the reasons she voted to acquit was that the state could not show how Kelly Anthony died. With this particular case, with Megan Boswell, you have Mountain of Lies. You have her being last seen with the child and her not reporting and making up stories. So I think they stand a better than average shot at this time of proving her guilt beyond and to the exclusion of a reasonable doubt.
Rick Wagner from the Kingsport Times News. There have been some developments over the summer in this case. It started as felony murder, but my understanding is now we're up to first-degree murder in this case?
Yeah, back in, I think it was in June of 2024, there was a felony first-degree premeditated murder added to the 2 previous first-degree felony murder charges. And in addition to that, she had 12 charges of false police reports on 1 count each of child abuse, child neglect, and abuse of a corpse. So the prosecution obviously is going to go for all those, and it's all going to be in one trial, as I said before the break.
Judge Perry, the fact that they're now charging first-degree premeditated murder, upping it from felony murder, right? It seems that they must have some additional information because they've got to now prove that this was planned, this was plotted, this was her intention. This is not some accident. She wasn't disciplining the child and the child just died as a result of some physical abuse. This was like her intent was to take the life of this angel.
First of all, Vivi, the manner of death can lead to premeditated first-degree murder. Asphyxiation means she suffocated that little angel to death. You got a blanket that was wrapped around her neck so tight that it left indentations on that angel's face. She was also suffocated by the use of aluminum foil. Those are all indicators of someone who intends that their victim died. So they have the premeditation element. You know, the question is going to be, how do they attach that to her sufficiently in the minds of the jury where they will return a verdict of murder in the first degree?
Rick Wagner, this obviously is a huge story in the community, and they're going to try this case in the community, is my understanding. They're going to try to get a jury out of Sullivan County. Judge Belvin Perry had to import some jurors from another county. What's the vibe in the community right now regarding little baby Evelyn and her mom, who's been charged now with this first-degree premeditated murder?
Well, I guess the easiest way to explain that or to respond to it is that the prosecutor made a statement in one of the hearings in August that he believes that you may have to have a jury panel of about 1,200 people in order to come up with a jury of 12. And he also gave that as the reason that the prosecution is not putting a lot of information out about the case, in his words. The defense, on the other hand, has recently brought in an investigator, and I believe is holding its cards pretty close to the vest, if I'm not mixing my statements there. It's I think both sides are sort of aware that it's going to be a very well-watched case as it makes its way through the system.
Absolutely. Judge, what's the key to finding a jury in the county where this happened?
The key is not that they have information about the case and whether or not they have formed an opinion. The key is whether or not they can set aside those opinions and base their verdict solely on the evidence that will be presented. Some jurors can, some jurors cannot. It just depends on how many of them who will say that I have no opinion or I've set aside that opinion and I can make my decision solely on the evidence presented during the trial.
I think that the best case scenario for this trial to go off without a hitch is that they have a judge as good as the Honorable Belvin Perry taking over this case. Judge, thank you so much. Great to see you. Rick, great to see you. All right, folks, we've got more to get to. I'm Vinnie Politan. We will always here keep digging for answers as the investigation continues. I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of a 15-month-old girl named Evelyn, who should be going to school, making friends, and learning something new each day. But instead, she's the subject of a true crime tragedy. Here's her story.
Little baby Evelyn lived with her single teenage mom, Megan Boswell, in Sullivan County, Tennessee. She was being raised with the help of her grandparents on the family compound. But in February of 2020, Evelyn was reported missing by her grandpa. Her mom cried on TV looking for her baby, then was arrested for misleading police. Things then changed dramatically in the case when Evelyn was found dead on the family compound. And now Megan has been charged with first-degree premeditated murder.
When we first started covering this story, it was the search for a missing baby, and no one knew where she was. And Megan was telling stories, and there were searches that were going on campgrounds, and there was a car that was of interest. There was an Amber Alert. I mean, everyone had their eyes open looking for this little child. But then she was found. Take a listen.
This evening, we received the information that led TBI agents and Sullivan County detectives to a property belonging to a family member of Evelyn's mother in the 500 block of Muddy Creek Road in Blumpville. During the search, investigators discovered human remains believed to be those of a 15-month-old girl. The remains will be sent for an autopsy and a positive identification. At this time, the investigation is in the very early stages. There's a lot of work left to be done, and right now, this is the extent of what we can provide today.
So she wasn't in some campground. She wasn't abducted and taken away. She was on the family's property where they all lived, where Megan lived, where Evelyn lived, where the whole family lived, which brings me to our next question, which is an important one for a child who's been murdered. Who was in baby Evelyn's life? Who were the people surrounding this 15-month-old child with those big, bright blue eyes? Joining me, staff writer for the Kingsport Times News, Rick Wagner is with us, and also joining us, clinical and forensic neuropsychologist and author of the book, The New Rules of Attachment, Dr. Judy Ho. I want to start this discussion and take a look at Evelyn's family tree, so we have an understanding of some of the people who were surrounding this little girl. And we begin with, of course, Evelyn Boswell, the child, and her mom, Megan Boswell. You look at Megan, she was just a teenager when this child was born, was 17 years old, and she's been charged with making false reports, but also charged with the first-degree premeditated murder of Evelyn. Then you've got Ethan Perry, who is Evelyn's father. Megan told investigators that Ethan had Evelyn, but investigators determined that he was stationed in Louisiana at the time. He's in the military and doesn't really have a relationship with Megan. It's not clear that they have any sort of ongoing relationship, but he is the father. Now, also in Evelyn's life is Tommy Boswell Sr., and this is Megan's dad, which would be Evelyn's grandpa. And he's the one who actually reported her missing and was married to Angela Boswell until they divorced in 2014. That couple had a lot of domestic violence incidents and calls, and he's the one who owns that family compound on Muddy Creek Road where he and Tommy operated a business. Now, Angela Boswell, also in Evelyn's life, that is Tommy's ex-wife, but is the grandma and the grandma of Evelyn and the mother of Megan Boswell. She, unfortunately, has a lengthy criminal record and was arrested with her boyfriend on charges of theft after the vehicle they were in was reported stolen. This was a vehicle of interest in the original investigation. That boyfriend, also in Evelyn's life, obviously, is William McLeod, which is grandma's boyfriend, arrested in Tennessee after being accused of fleeing town in a stolen car with Angela. He, too, with a lengthy criminal record. So, Rick Wagner, as we look at this family and where little baby Evelyn was found, it's a family compound. How would you describe this area where they live, Muddy Creek Road, and where the family was situated, and what the situation was where Evelyn was living?
Well, Muddy Creek Road is has the address of the county seat of Sullivan, which is Blountville, but it's out what I would maybe call in the country. And the business that was operated out there was a paving business. And I wouldn't say that it's an extremely rural area, but it also isn't a metropolitan. It's more of a suburban to almost a rural area. And my understanding of the small little, we call them yard barns in this part of the country, is that it was pretty much just a storage unit, yard barn, maybe somewhere where the children would play. And I remember that pretty vividly from the 2020 when they first announced they had found her body.
Dr. Judy Ho, as we show the photos of her family, I think the people at home are probably noticing something. They all appear to be mugshots of some sort. This is not from a family photo album. The family photo album is mugshots. What are your thoughts about the world that Evelyn was living in, the world that Megan was raising Evelyn in?
Well, it seems like there was a lot of instability, possibly a lot of chaos, not great role modeling, clearly, for Megan, who is a teen mom, and really uncertain as to how Evelyn was being taken care of in terms of her basic needs, in terms of what she was witnessing, because Vinny, you mentioned that there was a long history of domestic violence between Megan's mom and her ex-husband, Tommy, and then her current boyfriend at the time of arrest is somebody who shared a long criminal history with her. And it can be really hard when children grow up in that environment. I'm talking about Megan as well as Evelyn, seeing that this is your parents' lives, not really having good role modeling to understand what parenting should be about and what the priorities need to be when you become a parent. She's probably more immature than the average person her age to begin with. And then the father's not in the picture. So I wonder how much support she really had in all of this and raising Evelyn.
I want to read this. This is from the Knoxville News Sentinel, describing some of the chaos in this family. Angela Boswell was 16 when she gave birth to Tommy Boswell Sr.'s first son, Tommy Jr., back in '93. Background check shows that Tommy racked up an assault charge in Sullivan County a few months after the boy's birth, but the details no longer available. TBI report shows he was convicted of a misdemeanor assault a year later. The couple, records show, eventually moved to Bulls Gap in Greene County. 2001, Angela Boswell gave birth to the couple's second child, which was Megan, Evelyn's mother. Angela married Tommy Boswell Sr. a few months later. By 2009, the couple was back in Sullivan County, settling the kids in a manufactured home atop a hill on a family-owned plot of land on Muddy Creek Road. But there's little harmony inside those walls. In March of that year, Tommy Boswell Sr. told deputies his wife attacked him, stabbing him in the neck with an ink pen and struggling with their then 14-year-old son, Tommy Jr., as he tried to rescue his dad. What picture does that paint for you, Dr. Judy Ho, for Megan, who is still a teenager and a child, and for Evelyn?
Well, Vinny, it's all that she knows. These are the people that are in her life showing her what it is when a relationship has conflict, how you resolve that conflict, what you do when you're upset with somebody. She's not learning good emotion regulation skills herself. She's probably not learning good life skills. As we both have said, this is a very chaotic home, moving back and forth, trying to settle down, and then having more of your rap sheet follow you for a variety of reasons. And I think that that's very, very difficult for a young mind. Teenage brains are clearly not anywhere near maturity. And so there's already an impulse control component here. And this is a very important time to be instilling some skills so that the person's brain develops, understands morality, understands executive functions, how to make sound decisions. I do not think Megan had access to any of that.
Yeah, and Rick, we look at the records, we look at the family and the array of mugshots that we can use to show who everyone is. To me, it signals as we look forward to try to figure out exactly what happened to Evelyn and who could have been responsible and how it happened, that there's a lot of chaos and a lot of law enforcement intervention involved with this family. Generation after generation now.
Yes, I think that a lot of that is going to be the things that are talked about during the forthcoming trial that neither side is really willing to say. I'm sure there's going to be some presentations on this person may have done this person may have done that. I think it's important to note, though, that the grandfather, I think, is the one who reported her missing, his granddaughter, Evelyn, and he may have, directly or indirectly led to the finding, because he obviously was open to them, to the law enforcement searching his property, or they, or at least didn't oppose that. And it's sort of a sad story all the way around, and there's a lot of moving parts, and I guess it will be determined in the court if one of those moving parts may have been part of the motive and part of the, the blame, if you will.
Dr. Judy Ho, it's difficult being a single mom. It's really difficult being a teenage single mom. This teenage single mom is in her own case, her own home. There's a level of chaos. But even given all that, I still don't understand how anyone could do anything but love a little child like that.
That's right, Vinny. I mean, just look at her. She was so cute, those eyes. She's a complete innocent person in all of this. And it doesn't matter how overwhelmed you are, you ask for help, you lean on others for support. If it's not your family, you go to a local community center, you try to find resources somehow. And I just don't think that, again, we don't know what the motive is specifically, but it would seem that she was likely extremely overwhelmed, did not know what to do. And then given what she grew up with and seeing criminality and seeing people not value human life, there's violence all around her, that this may not have been such a huge leap for her that it would be for the average person who couldn't fathom doing such a thing to an innocent child.
Yeah, it's the level of tragedy here is hard to really ascertain. And again, a lot of the information, it has not been made public because that's been done purposefully by prosecutors trying to keep it out of the public fray to protect potential jurors from hearing things. And that's one of the reasons some of the lines have not been completed in this story. But we've got more still to come. This is a big one. Why did it take so long to report Evelyn missing?
This case is unlike anything I've ever been involved in. We've had a child that's not been seen by the parents or certain family members in almost 2 months.
One of the most successful true crime TV shows ever.
This is crazy.
Now has a new home on America's original true crime obsession, 48 Hours on Court TV. Coming up next on Court TV.
It's the man who beat me up for 5 years.
2 celebrities reveal their turbulent relationship to the world.
Go ahead. Hit me. Victim to Verdict with Ted Rollins. New season premieres Sunday night, 8/7 Central.
Only on Court TV.
I always have concerns about trafficking and any type of offense, across state lines and sailing. And I always think of the worst, but we just got to hope and pray little Evelyn's okay and we can get her back as soon as possible. This case is unlike anything I've ever been involved in. We've had a child that's not been seen by the parents or certain family members in almost 2 months.
2 months. Think about that for a minute. Just think about that for a minute. This little 15-year-old, right? 15-month-old, I'm sorry, 15-month-old, is part of the family. And then no one has seen her for 2 months and no one does anything. How's that possible? Brings me to my next question in this case. Why did it take so long to report Evelyn missing? It wasn't just Megan and Evelyn living together. It was like a family compound. There's uncles. I'm sure there's friends. There's family. How does this happen? Still with me, Rick Wagner and Dr. Judy Ho. Rick, is there any answer for that? I know Grandpa eventually is the one who does it. Thank goodness he did. But has that question really ever been answered as to why no one in Evelyn's life reported her missing for 2 months?
At the beginning of this case, before her body was found, there was a lot of conversation, speculation, a lot written about that. But I don't really think we will truly find out possibly why until the trial. I think it's probably going to be integral to the defense and or the prosecution. As others have said, she was in sort of a disjointed family situation, and at least that I know of, and my colleagues and I who've written about this and followed it, I'm sorry, I don't think I have an answer.
Well, the answer may not be there. Dr. Judy Ho, here's the image I have in my mind. I can't get it out of my mind because it's the timing of this. It's December, Christmas, a 15-month-old on Christmas. Like, wouldn't everyone want to give this child a present or see her eyes on Christmas morning or Christmas dinner or Christmas, I don't know, where, if they go to church, they don't go to church, if they celebrate Christmas or not, but the season, like, this is it. And no one even batted an eye that this child is not here for Christmas, not here for New Year's for 2 months. What does that tell you about the life that this child was living? That she's gone for 2 months and no one says anything?
Well, it seems like, based on the information we have so far about the family and the family dynamics, Vinny, that this child was not their priority. This was not a child that was being tended to every single day, lovingly cared for by multiple members of the family. And as you said, whether or not they celebrate Christmas, those holiday weeks are generally a time of togetherness. People use it as a time to get together because many people are taking vacations, business is slowing down. It's the time for family to get together and maybe to see each other a little bit more often than they otherwise would. So if this was any normal family where, you ask about a child, you want to see the child, and maybe you don't take no for an answer. What do you mean, you can't bring her around? Please bring her around. We want to see her. I don't think that that is the way this family was operating. I don't think that this child was anyone's true priority. And I also think that maybe if the case was that Megan was just making excuses, pushing it off, oh yeah, she's around, I'll bring her next week or the week after, that perhaps the extended family just took that for an answer for a long time. Like, okay, I guess we'll see her when we see her, as opposed to, no, something feels off. Let me take a look at this. Let me investigate this. I don't think that this was that proactive family.
And that's a great point, because we've talked a lot about her lies, and she's been charged with 12 counts of it. So she couldn't just lie to law enforcement. She could be lying to Uncle Tommy. She could be lying to her father, her mother, everyone else in her life. But 2 months, I mean, that's a big chunk of that child's life. 50. I mean, this is the age when everybody just wants to, hold the child, squeeze the child. Is she walking? Is she talking? What is she saying now? Can you put her on FaceTime? Can we just see her? Right? I mean, all these things seem so normal for everyone else, but not for this family, Dr. Judy.
Exactly. And I think that that's why it's so hard with our logical minds and maybe with our own experiences and what we could have done, what we should have done if we were anywhere near this scenario. We just can't imagine why this family would do this. But I want to point out that
Did pick up the phone and make the call. He absolutely did. Sometimes it's difficult for someone who's had run-ins with law enforcement to make the call, but he did. Do we know what led to that, Rick? Was there some particular moment that kind of forced his hand that, listen, that's it, I'm calling police here? Have they made that clear at all? And I know, again, a lot of the information has been purposely suppressed in this story.
I think that is the case with this bit of information, but if I can recall correctly, and everything that was written and said and broadcast about it, he was becoming very concerned and worried that something had happened to his granddaughter. And
it did. And it did.
He wanted to get to the, regardless of any kind of past run-ins or problems with law enforcement they had with him.
We're out of time. We're out of time for tonight, unfortunately, but thank you so much, Rick Wagner, Dr. Judy Ho. Appreciate your insight and expertise. Little baby Evelyn never really had a chance. She was let down by all the people who were supposed to protect her. Now the question is, will the person who gave her life end up doing life for taking her life? 12 people will make that decision.
Justice served in an honest fight. True crime tales till the verdict's right. Solving more than just trivial quests, where sentences rule at the defense rests. Justice served in an honest fight. True crime tales till the verdict's right. Solving more than just trivial quests, where sentences rule at the defense rests.